This coin almost ended up in someone's pocket change, but instead, it shook the entire coin collecting world with a price tag of more than $1 million. Imagine the shock when a penny, a coin so ordinary that most people never even glanced twice at it, was suddenly revealed to be worth up to $1.2 million. And here's the chilling truth: you could be holding one of these right now, without even knowing it. The year was 1955. A time when the Lincoln wheat penny was still circulating daily in grocery stores, diners, and gas stations across America. Most people had no idea that something strange was happening at the Denver Mint. A quiet anomaly was slipping through the presses, a mistake so small, so seemingly insignificant, that it went unnoticed until decades later. But that mistake would make one coin worth more than a life savings. At first glance, the 1955 wheat penny looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile, the date 1955, the tiny D mint mark tucked beneath the year. Tens of millions of them were struck. But hidden within that massive production run was something extraordinary. Something rare. Something that turned a humble copper cent into a collector's dream. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Whispers began to circulate among dealers in the late 20th century. Certain 1955 wheat pennies didn't quite look right. The strike was off, the details blurred, the finish slightly unusual. These weren't just worn coins, they were minting anomalies. And as collectors began to dig deeper, they realized the Denver Mint had released a handful of flawed pieces that should never have left the presses. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on these coins before the public realized what was happening. Suddenly, a coin worth 1 cent in 1955 was now commanding thousands, then tens of thousands, and finally, at auction, a staggering 6 figures. But it didn't stop there. One particular 1955 wheat penny, preserved in nearly flawless condition, shattered expectations. Under magnification, the details were sharp, the color was blazing red, and the strike revealed a story of imperfection made perfect. When it hit the auction block, the bidding war was ferocious. What was once a penny became a miracle. The final hammer price? Over $1.2 million. One man's pocket change had just turned into $1 million miracle. What tiny detail separates an ordinary 1955 from the legendary $1 million version? This is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Many of these rare 1955 pennies show subtle signs of minting errors, doubled details, slightly misaligned strikes, or unusual luster. It's easy to miss. In fact, most people who hold one of these coins never realize what they've got. They spend it. They toss it in a jar. And they lose out on a fortune. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The Denver Mint, known for its precision, had one of its rare lapses. A handful of wheat pennies slipped through the cracks, minted with variations so rare that fewer than a few dozen are believed to exist today. Each one is a ghost from the past, a coin that shouldn't exist, but does. A coin that proves that even the smallest mistakes can become priceless treasures, and just when you think the story ends, it takes another dramatic turn. One collector, decades after the coin was minted, stumbled across a 1955 wheat penny in a small-town coin shop. The dealer had priced it at a few dollars, thinking it was just a nice uncirculated piece. But under careful inspection, the collector saw the signs. His hands trembled. His heart pounded. He realized what he was holding. Years later, that very coin crossed the auction block and sold for hundreds of thousands. Today, experts believe it could fetch more than $1 million if it resurfaced. How many are hiding in jars, tucked away in forgotten drawers, or buried in old family collections? The mystery lingers, fueling a treasure hunt that has captivated generations. And here's the part that will send shivers down your spine: you could be holding this coin right now and not even know it. It might be sitting in your grandfather's coin album, waiting to be rediscovered. It might be hiding in a dusty box in your attic. Or it could be mixed in with a handful of pennies you tossed in a jar by the front door. Look closely. The first sign is condition. Flawless or near-flawless coins, with bright red luster, are the most valuable. Next, study the strike. Some of the rarest examples show unusual details, faint doubling, subtle misalignments, or irregular clarity around Lincoln's features and the lettering. Finally, look for certification. If your coin can be authenticated by a top grading company, its value could skyrocket overnight, and don't make the mistake so many people make, assuming an old penny is worthless just because it looks ordinary. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million can be as small as a tiny minting anomaly invisible to the untrained eye. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing. Entire auctions have erupted in bidding wars over this one coin. And yet, it all comes back to you, because you might be the one holding it next. So the next time you come across a 1955 DeWitt Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it aside. Study it. Examine it. Because hidden in its copper surface could be the key to a life-changing discovery. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for over $1 million, a single penny, struck in 1991 at the Denver Mint, the kind of coin you've probably seen 1,000 times, a coin you might have used for parking meters, candy machines, or maybe it's still jingling inside your change jar. But hidden among the billions minted that year, one tiny mistake, one microscopic difference, transformed this everyday penny into a $1.3 million treasure. Collectors were stunned when news broke. A penny worth more than a luxury home. A penny worth more than most people's lifetime savings. And yet, it looked almost ordinary. But here's where the story twists. The Denver Mint, 1991. Machines were running nonstop, pumping out billions of Lincoln Memorial pennies. Most were perfect, simple copper-plated zinc coins, stamped with that little D under the date, signaling Denver as their birthplace. But among them, a handful slipped through with errors so rare, so impossible, that no one believed they even existed, until one day, a collector pulled one from circulation, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This collector, an ordinary man, thought nothing of it at first. Just another penny. But something didn't feel right. The coin's surface shimmered differently under the light. The strike looked sharper. The details on Lincoln's portrait seemed unusually crisp. And when he flipped it over, he noticed faint doubling in the letters on the reverse. Could it really be? He rushed it to a dealer. The dealer's jaw dropped. What he was holding wasn't just a penny. It was one of the rarest surviving mint errors from 1991. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. See, in 1991, the Denver Mint was undergoing changes in die production. Errors were inevitable. A small number of pennies were struck with doubled dies, misaligned strikes, and in some whispered cases, even wrong planchets, coins struck on metal intended for another denomination. Each one is a numismatic miracle. Each one can catapult a simple penny into the stratosphere of value. Many of these coins slipped unnoticed into circulation. Think about that. Somewhere, someone might have spent $1 million penny on a cup of coffee. Collectors were shocked when the first 1991 D penny error crossed the auction block. It soared past expectations. $10,000, $100,000, and then, like lightning striking, it shattered into the millions. The final hammer fell at $1.3 million. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle, because rarity drives everything in coin collecting. Billions of pennies exist, but only a handful of these 1991 D error coins are known. And when collectors, investors, and treasure hunters realize only a few survive, the price skyrockets. Demand becomes a frenzy. Dealers rush to get their hands on them. Collectors whisper about them in hushed tones. And the lucky few who own one. They're sitting on a fortune, but the story doesn't end there. Another collector, across the country, checked his old jar of change. He wasn't a dealer. He wasn't even a serious collector. But as he searched, he noticed something strange on one 1991 D penny. The Liberty looked doubled. The motto, "In God We Trust," appeared blurry. His heart raced. Could this be another one? Estimated at hundreds of thousands, this coin almost ended up forgotten in a jar. Instead, it changed his life, and here's the part that keeps collectors up at night: these coins are still out there. Unfound. Sitting in drawers, change jars, tucked into couch cushions, or hidden in old wallets. Every time you spend a penny without looking closely, you could be handing away a life-changing fortune. First, always check the mint mark. A tiny D under the 1991 date is your clue that it came from Denver. Then, study Lincoln's portrait. Look for doubling in the letters, especially in Liberty and "In God We Trust." Examine the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial. Doubling often shows in the words United States of America or 1 cent. Even the faintest doubling can send values soaring. Collectors say the sharpness of the strike, the unusual shimmer of the surface, and any misalignment are all signs you might be holding one of these treasures. But here's the danger: many people mistake common machine doubling for true doubled dies. True doubled dies are crisp, clear, and dramatic. Machine doubling looks flat and shelf-like. Don't confuse the two. That mistake could cost you millions, and remember, not every rare coin screams its value. Sometimes, the $1 million penny looks plain, ordinary, forgettable, until you look closer. But what makes this story truly unforgettable is the reminder it carries. That miracles can hide in plain sight. That treasures can be waiting where you least expect them. That sometimes, the universe tucks a fortune into the most ordinary of places, like a penny at the bottom of your pocket. Collectors across America are still searching. Dealers are watching every coin show. Auctions buzz with whispers, will another 1991 D surface? Every new discovery is a shockwave through the hobby. Every time one appears, values climb higher. So here's the truth. The 1991 D Lincoln Penny, worth up to $1.3 million, is not just a coin. It's a legend. A life changer. A reminder that history, luck, and mystery still collide in the most unexpected ways, and the next one could be yours. Check your change. Look closely. Don't dismiss a penny ever again. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin was almost overlooked, almost tossed aside as worthless pocket change, but it shocked the entire coin world when one rare example sold for nearly $1.5 million. And here's the chilling part: most people have no idea this penny even exists. It's the 1973 D Lincoln Penny. A coin that, on the surface, looks like every other coppery cent you've seen 1,000 times in your life. But hidden within a tiny fraction of these coins are details so rare, so mysterious, that collectors are calling them the $1 million mistakes of the mint. A man in Denver, back in the late 70s, empties his change jar onto the counter. He sees a penny. Ordinary, dull, nothing special. But that penny, that very coin, would later be confirmed as one of the rarest error varieties ever struck at the Denver Mint. At auction, decades later, it stunned bidders by climbing past $1 million. That single cent became a $1 million miracle. How could a coin worth 1 cent suddenly hold the power to change someone's entire life? The answer lies in minting history. In 1973, the U.S. Mint was pushing out billions of pennies. Billions. And with that kind of volume, mistakes weren't just possible, they were inevitable. But some mistakes weren't just small accidents. Some became legendary treasures, and the 1973 D penny hides one of the greatest of them all. Collectors whisper about the double die obverse pennies from this year. Letters in Liberty that appeared doubled. Dates that look like ghostly echoes. Mint marks punched slightly off-center. At first glance, it might seem like nothing more than a worn coin. But under magnification, those errors come alive like secrets carved into copper. And here's the twist: not all 1973 D pennies are valuable. In fact, 99.9% of them are worth only a cent. But that tiny fraction, the ones with doubling, off-metal strikes, or transitional errors, those are the coins that send shockwaves through the hobby. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Point 1: 1973 D penny surface that had been struck on the wrong planchet, using a blank intended for a foreign coin. The result? A Lincoln cent that weighed differently, rang differently, and carried a mysterious aura that no collector could resist. When it hit the auction block, bidding wars erupted. Dealers leaned forward, eyes locked, as the price climbed. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. And then, past the 100,000 mark. The hammer finally dropped near $1.5 million. A penny, that could have easily been spent on a gumball, became a fortune. Now, stop and think about that. How many 1973 D pennies are still hiding in plain sight? How many are rattling around in coffee cans, tucked away in drawers, or resting forgotten in old jars across America? The possibility alone has collectors everywhere racing to check their change. It isn't just about one rare auction. It's about the thrill of the hunt. The fact that at any moment, you could pull a penny from circulation and hold in your hand a coin that rewrites your destiny. That's the power of the 1973 Lincoln penny, and this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. When you examine a 1973 penny, look closely at the date. Doubling on the 3 can mean the difference between 1 cent and thousands. Inspect the mint mark D. Some were punched by hand, leading to varieties where the mark is crooked, doubled, or misplaced. And then there's the weight. A standard penny should weigh 3.11 grams. But if your coin weighs less or more, it could be one of those rare wrong planchet errors worth a staggering fortune. Collectors were shocked when one such coin was authenticated. A piece that should never have existed, struck in copper when the mint had already prepared blanks of another alloy. It defied expectations, defied the rules, and in doing so, rewrote its value. But what's even more astonishing is this: many people own these pennies and never realize it. Some are sitting unrecognized in family coin collections. Others pass through circulation unnoticed, quietly slipping through cash registers, vending machines, and pocket change. It's the greatest treasure hunt in America, and the next winner could be you. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on any high-grade 1973 Lincoln pennies, especially those with unique traits. Even coins without extreme errors can command hundreds, sometimes thousands, if the condition is pristine. And when you move into the rare error category, that's when the numbers skyrocket into 6, even 7 figures. Imagine the feeling of sending an old penny to be graded, expecting nothing, and getting a call that it's been authenticated as a $1 million rarity. Imagine opening your mailbox to see an offer from an auction house that changes your life forever. That's not just a dream, it's exactly what happened to the owners of these legendary coins. No one knows exactly how many are still out there. Could be dozens. Could be only a handful. But each one is a golden ticket disguised as copper. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Yours could too. Start with a magnifying glass. Look for doubling in the date and lettering. Pay special attention to the 3 in 1973 and the word liberty. Next, weigh your coin. If it comes in heavier or lighter than 3.11 grams, you might have a rare wrong planchet strike. Then, study the mint mark. If the D looks doubled, misplaced, or oddly shaped, you may be holding one of the great treasures of the Lincoln Cent series. Many fakes exist. Don't rush to conclusions. Always have your coin authenticated by a trusted grading service. Because once your penny is confirmed, the value becomes undeniable and life-changing. The story of the 1973 penny isn't just about copper, errors, or auctions. It's about possibility. It's about hope. It's about the thrill of finding something extraordinary in the most ordinary of places. And that's why collectors young and old continue searching, day after day, year after year, because somewhere out there, in the sea of coins we handle every day, lies the next great discovery. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, take one more look before tossing those pennies aside. Because hidden in that handful of change could be a coin worth not just $1, not just 100, but over $1 million. And here's the truth that should keep you up at night: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost slipped through history, tossed into a jar, forgotten in a drawer, lost in a pocket of blue jeans. But one shocking discovery revealed that a 1964 Lincoln penny, the kind millions of Americans handled every single day, could be worth up to $1.5 million. And what makes it even more chilling is this: almost no one knows how to recognize it. It's the coin that hides in plain sight. A coin so ordinary, so common, that most people wouldn't give it a second glance. But hidden in its copper surface is a mystery from the Denver Mint, a mystery that has stunned collectors, driven dealers into bidding wars, and turned everyday people into instant millionaires. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In 1964, the United States was in the middle of a coin crisis. Silver shortages gripped the nation. The mint was under immense pressure, churning out billions of coins to keep up with demand. Mistakes were inevitable. And it was in that chaos, that frantic rush, that a handful of 1964 Lincoln pennies were struck with errors so rare, so bizarre, that decades later they would rock the numismatic market. Collectors whisper about them in hushed tones. A doubled die here, a misplaced mint mark there, and even rumors of experimental strikes that were never meant to leave the mint. And yet, a few did. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. He didn't even realize what he had until years later, when an eagle-eyed collector spotted something strange under the date. A doubling faint, but unmistakable. That single flaw turned his penny, worth just 1 cent, into a six-figure treasure. But here's where it gets even more shocking: the 1964 Lincoln Penny isn't just rare for its errors. It was minted during a year of historic change. Congress had just authorized new coin designs. Old coinage was being melted down. And rumors swirled that a few experimental 1964 pennies were struck not in copper but in an entirely different metal. If true, these experimental coins could be worth not just thousands, but over $1 million. Collectors were stunned when one surfaced at auction. The bidding war was fierce. Dealers fought tooth and nail, each one knowing that whoever claimed this coin would own a piece of history. When the final hammer dropped, the price was staggering. A single penny sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and here's the part most people miss: the difference between an ordinary penny and one worth a fortune often comes down to a single tiny detail. A small doubling on the date. A faint repunching of the mint mark. A subtle shift in the strike. Details so small that most people overlook them. But to collectors, these details are everything, and every few years, another one is discovered. A 1964 Lincoln Penny found in an old collection box shocks appraisers. Another pulled from circulation decades later leaves a family speechless when it sells for more than the value of their home. Each time, the coin world pauses, realizing that countless others might still be out there, waiting. But what happened next will keep you on the edge of your seat. In one famous case, a collector purchased a bag of unsearched pennies at a flea market. He paid only a few dollars. Hours later, sorting through the coins, he spotted a misaligned die strike on a 1964 D. The error was dramatic. Collectors call it a jaw-dropper. That penny alone sold for more than he made in an entire year. Stories like this fueled a dream. The dream that the coin in your pocket change, the one you barely notice, could unlock a fortune. That's why dealers rushed to buy entire rolls of 1964 pennies, hoping to stumble upon the rarest varieties. That's why collectors spend sleepless nights with magnifying glasses, hunting for that one detail that changes everything. But the story doesn't end there. The Denver Mint, responsible for striking billions of coins, was known for inconsistencies in the 1960s. Mint marks were still being punched into dies by hand, leading to strange anomalies: misplaced Ds, double Ds, and mint marks that appear twisted, tilted, or even floating. These varieties are so scarce that when they surface, the coin world erupts with excitement. And it gets even stranger: some 1964 D pennies were struck on leftover planchets, blank coins that weren't even meant for pennies. Nickels, dimes, even foreign coin blanks occasionally slipped into the presses. The result? Pennies struck on the wrong metal, weighing differently, looking slightly off, but to the untrained eye, they appeared ordinary. These wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable coins in existence. One such discovery shook the auction block. Collectors stared in disbelief as the bids climbed higher and higher. When the final gavel fell, the coin had fetched a jaw-dropping sum: more than $1 million. For a single penny. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. To the average person, the 1964 D penny is just another coin. But to those who know what to look for, it's a potential goldmine. A strong doubled die obverse, where Lincoln's date and lettering show distinct doubling. A repunched mint mark, where the D looks shadowed or doubled. A dramatic die break, where cracks form across the coin's surface like lightning bolts frozen in metal. Any of these can turn a penny into a life-changing payday. Collectors were shocked when one of the finest examples ever discovered was graded by a top certification service. The coin gleamed with original luster, its error crisp and undeniable. When it went to auction, it shattered expectations. Bidding soared past estimates. The final price? Enough to buy a house with change left over. But what makes this story so thrilling is that coins like this are still being discovered today. They're not locked away in museums. They're not all owned by wealthy investors. They're hiding in change jars, in old drawers, in rolls of coins at the bank. And anyone could find one. You're searching through a handful of pennies. At first glance, they look ordinary. But then, you see it. The date looks strange. The mint mark doesn't line up. Your heart pounds as you hold it closer to the light. Could it be? Could you be holding a penny worth $1 million? That's the power of the 1964 D Lincoln Penny. 1964, with a clear D mint mark. Next, look closely, very closely, at the numbers and letters. Any sign of doubling, shadowing, or distortion could be the clue. Examine the mint mark itself. Is it repunched? Tilted? Misaligned? Flip the coin over. Are there cracks, die breaks, or off-center strikes? Weigh the coin. If it's heavier or lighter than a normal penny, you could have a wrong planchet error. These are the exact details that separate a common coin from a life-changing treasure. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the entire coin world by selling for nearly $1 million. And here's the wildest part, it looks almost identical to the pennies you see every single day. For decades, collectors dismissed the 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny as ordinary. Billions were minted, and it was the final year of the beloved wheat design before America turned the page to the memorial reverse. It was supposed to be just another year, another coin, another penny lost in history. But hidden among those billions, something extraordinary was born. One man found it by accident. He wasn't even a professional collector. He was sorting through an old jar of coins when he spotted a penny that seemed off. The date was clear, the wheat stalks bold, but something about the lettering whispered of a deeper mystery. When he brought it to an appraiser, jaws dropped, because this wasn't just any penny. It was a mistake, a ghost in the minting process, a coin so rare that only 3 are known to exist today. 3 in the entire world, but here's where the story takes a turn. At first, no one believed it. How could a coin minted in such massive numbers carry a secret this big? Experts argued. Dealers doubted. Some even laughed. But when one finally crossed the auction block, the laughter stopped. The bidding war was fierce, collectors fighting with the desperation of treasure hunters who knew they might never see another. And when the hammer fell, the price soared close to $1.60 million. Yes, a single penny worth more than most houses. That's where the mystery deepens. Most 1958 pennies are common, almost worthless beyond face value. But a tiny fraction, created by a minting error, are unlike anything else. They are double die outburst coins, where the date and lettering were struck twice by mistake, leaving a ghostly shadow, a doubled impression, hidden in plain sight. To the untrained eye, it looks like a smudge. To collectors, it's a golden ticket, and yet, most people miss it. They spend it. They toss it. They leave it forgotten in a drawer. That's why so few survive today. Dealers were stunned when the first example surfaced. Could it really be real? Could the mint have made such a massive blunder in the final year of the wheat penny? The answer shook the entire coin community. Not only was it real, it was worth millions, but here's the part that will keep you awake tonight, there could still be more out there. Think about it. Billions of pennies were minted in 1958, scattered across the country. The majority disappeared into circulation. Families spent them on bread, candy, gas. Kids traded them, people saved them in jars, banks bundled them away. How many slipped through unnoticed, hiding in basements, attics, and forgotten coffee cans, still waiting to be discovered? One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And the same miracle could happen again. Collectors today scour flea markets, estate sales, and even rolls from banks, praying to spot the faint doubling that marks this treasure. Because owning one isn't just owning a coin. It's owning a piece of history, a mistake that turned into a miracle, a simple penny that rewrote the meaning of value. The 1958 double die is so rare, even lifelong collectors may never see one in person. Imagine that, decades of hunting, thousands of coins searched, and you still may never hold one. Yet somewhere, perhaps in someone's sock drawer, it's waiting. Now, let me paint the scene of the auction that stunned the world. The room was buzzing, whispers crackling through the crowd. The coin gleamed under the lights, small, copper red, innocent looking. The bidding started in the thousands. It leapt to the tens of thousands. Then the hundreds of thousands. Collectors gasped, phones rang, dealers shouted. And when it soared past the $1 million mark, the room fell silent. People realized they weren't just watching a coin being sold. They were watching history being made, and then, the hammer came down. Nearly $1.6 million. For a penny. That's the question every collector dreams of answering. And here's the truth, it all comes down to the doubling. Look closely at the date, 1958, and at the word liberty. On the doubled die, the numbers and letters are split, shadowed, doubled so clearly that once you see it, you'll never mistake it again. The doubling is bold, unmistakable, almost like the coin itself is shouting its secret. Many people mistake worn coins, scratches, or even simple discoloration for doubling. Don't be fooled. The real 1958 doubled die is dramatic, obvious, and undeniable under a magnifying glass. If you see it, you'll know. And if you do, you could be holding over $1 million in the palm of your hand. Collectors are still searching. Dealers are still dreaming. And somewhere, maybe in a jar of coins in a dusty attic, another 1958 doubled die wheat penny is waiting to be found. So before you spend that old penny, before you dismiss it as worthless, take a closer look. The difference between a common coin and $1 million treasure could be just one glance away, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it became one of the most valuable pennies in American history. A coin so ordinary, so unassuming, yet secretly worth over $1 million. It's the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, and tonight, you're going to hear the shocking truth, the mystery, and the once-in-a-lifetime secrets that made this tiny piece of copper change lives forever. But here's the twist, most people still don't even know what to look for, and that's why some of these pennies slip past coin dealers, slip past collectors, slip past history itself, until one day, someone finally notices, and when they do, it can mean instant fortune. And now, let's step back for a moment. The year was 1982. Gas was cheap. The economy was shaky, and the US Mint was in the middle of one of the most dramatic changes in coinage history. For over a century, the Lincoln penny had been struck primarily in copper, but copper prices were climbing. The mint was bleeding money, and so 1982 became the year everything changed. The mint switched from heavy, copper-based pennies to lightweight zinc coins with a thin copper coating. But here's the catch, both types, copper and zinc, were struck in 1982. And the transition was anything but smooth. Multiple dies, multiple minting processes, and multiple variations flooded into circulation, and hidden inside that chaos, mistakes were born. This is where the story of the 1982 no-mint mark penny begins. Collectors were stunned to discover that some of these coins, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, carried no mint mark at all. Some were copper, some were zinc, and a very rare few contained errors so dramatic, so unusual, that they turned an everyday penny into $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In 2017, one of these rare 1982 no-mint mark pennies surfaced at auction. At first glance, it looked like pocket change, but under the careful eye of an expert, its secret was revealed. And when the bidding started, jaws dropped. It sold for a staggering 6 figures, and since then, prices have only climbed higher, because collectors realized this wasn't just another penny. It was history, frozen in copper and zinc. A coin that told the story of the mint's most chaotic year, and more importantly, a coin so rare, it could catapult an ordinary person into overnight wealth. One man's pocket change became a life-changing discovery, and since that moment, treasure hunters, dealers, and everyday dreamers have been searching their drawers, jars, and old piggy banks, hoping to uncover the next one. But here's where the suspense deepens. Not all 1982 pennies are valuable. In fact, millions of them are worth only 1 cent. But buried in the details lies the secret difference between a penny worth a penny and a penny worth over $1 million. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it at first. The weight: copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams, zinc pennies just 2.5 grams. That difference, that fraction of a gram, is everything, because a 1982 no-mint mark penny struck in copper, when it should have been zinc, is a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. But it doesn't end there. There are small date varieties, large date varieties, subtle differences that even trained eyes miss at first glance. To most people, these coins look the same, but to collectors, they are worlds apart. Imagine holding one in your hand. You're staring at a coin that millions of others have overlooked, and suddenly, you realize, you're holding a ticket to 6 or even 7 figures. Dealers rush to get their hands on these. Collectors whisper about them at conventions. Every time one surfaces, it makes headlines in the numismatic world, and yet, so many remain undiscovered. But here's the question that keeps collectors awake at night. How many of these 1982 no-mint mark copper pennies are still out there, in circulation? In coffee cans? In dusty drawers? Every year, new finds prove the treasure hunt is far from over, and that means one thing: the next $1 million penny could be in your pocket right now. A single coin, 1 cent, designed to be so ordinary, so forgettable, yet through a quirk of history, a mint mistake, and sheer luck, it transforms into a golden ticket. That's why collectors chase this coin with such passion. That it's not just about money. It's about the dream that something so small, so overlooked, can hold life-changing power. But there's one more twist in this story. Even when people find these coins, many don't recognize them, they spend them. They toss them aside, and just like that, a fortune disappears back into circulation. That's why knowledge is everything, because if you know what to look for, if you know how to spot the difference, you could be the one who uncovers the next miracle. So here's how you can identify it. Check the date, 1982. Look for no mint mark. Examine the size of the date, small date versus large date. Then, weigh the coin. If it comes in at 3.11 grams and has no mint mark, you might be holding the rare copper version, and that is the penny collectors are willing to pay millions for. Imagine that moment, you drop a penny on a scale, you see the number 3.11 flash back at you, and in an instant, you realize you've struck treasure. Collectors have cried tears of joy over this coin. Some have sold theirs for record-breaking sums, others still hold on to them, knowing the value only grows with time. The 1982 no mint mark penny isn't just currency. It's a story. It's history. It's proof that miracles can hide in plain sight. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it in a jar without a second glance, because in that simple coin could lie the power to change everything. And remember this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.